Welcome everybody to the Cast from the Coast. My name is Adam Miles, and I'm joined as always by Josh Lambert, Aaron Peerless, and Tim Johnson. What are we talking about tonight?
We are talking about the 1987 classic, Monster Squad.
Monster Squad?
Yes! Stay tuned, everybody. Tim, give us a synopsis.
Monster Squad, 1987. Young kids form a club that is devoted to monsters and all things awesome and horror, but soon get more to what they're bargained for when Count Dracula comes back to Earth, accompanied by Frankenstein's monster, Wolfman, the Mummy, and the Gill Man. The Uglies are in search of a powerful amulet that will grant them power to rule the world, and our heroes, the Monster Squad, are the only ones daring to stand in their way. Boom!
Love it. Love it. So, this is a staple movie for a lot of us horror fanatics. This is a lot of people would call this a gateway movie into horror.
Yeah, good. That's it, yeah.
Really?
It's a gateway movie.
Yep. It is a gateway movie. It makes a lot of internet lists when it comes to, people asking the questions, how do I introduce my kids to horror? And the idea of monster movies and everything else. This movie usually tops the lists right off the bat to say, this is what you need to show them. It's a staple. It plain and simple is. So, yeah. So, talk a little bit more about the story there, Tim, buddy.
Well, I think I pretty much summed it all up in that fucking amazing synopsis. But like I said, Dracula's alive. He comes back, and he's out for an amulet, and he basically, this movie. Watching it, I was like, the Avengers fucking ripped this movie off. Because they put together like a super team of like Universal monsters, and like they're all in one movie, and they're all basically like I said, Dracula's alive, and he plans on taking over the world, and he seeks the help of other legendary monsters. But there's this group of kids. They're kind of losery, but they love horror. And they got a little treehouse where they talk about horror. And I'm not going to lie, I'd want to hang out with them as kids. And, that's basically the start of the story.
I'd hang out with them right now.
Yeah, I would. But it would be creepy, though, Aaron. Think about it.
4 of us in our little treehouse just up there, just like...
Just another 80s film. Creating unrealistic expectations for treehouses.
Yeah.
Yeah, that treehouse was fucking dope.
It
was dope.
Every kid wanted that treehouse.
Yeah,
that was great. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the characters. We'll jump right in here. So, the main characters that we're introduced to right off the bat are friends, Sean and Patrick. So, when we're introduced to these characters, they're getting trouble in school. They're horror fans, so this is something that a lot of kids who had a tendency for minds to wander when we were in school, guilty as friggin' charged, would end up, on the, I don't want to say principal's necessarily shit list, but teacher shit list, because it's, you're not paying attention in class, you're drawing monsters and creatures and horrible things, and you're I don't know about you guys, reading Fangoria magazines and famous monsters in Filmland, shit like this, right? And, these guys are really the outcasts. And, you know, I take to that because watching this movie when I was growing up, I was literally like I was watching myself.
Yeah.
You know? Aside from the fact that I didn't have a wicked-ass, you know, treehouse. I literally just... It was the whole idea behind, you know, the T-shirt, Stephen King rules.
Oh my God, that I would take that T-shirt over that treehouse any day. Actually, to tell you the truth, I've already ordered that T-shirt, and it will be making its premiere soon when I get it. And I was so excited because, like I said, I completely forgot that T-shirt existed. And as soon as Sean appears on screen, I was like, oh, I know someone's made that shirt on the internet somewhere, and lo and behold, I found it. So,
Yeah.
Nice.
yeah, I'm excited.
Dabbling...
But I digress.
He digresses. So dabbling in on with some of the other characters here. So obviously Sean and Patrick, they're the kind of the main guys who are, once again, they're heading up this monster club, as it's initially called. It's just a bunch of friends that get together. They have a semi-realistic view on what monsters would be if they were alive. And that's the whole general idea with these people, is that they're basically just fans, you know, the movies, the comics, the magazines, and everything about them. We get introduced right away as well to Horace, the atypical, I want to say, overweight friend who's constantly called in the movie.
Just call him what he was called. He was
Fat
called
kid.
Call him
Fat kid, right?
Fat kid.
I love that they didn't bother giving him like a mean or like a creative name. It's just Fat Kid.
It's just Fat Kid. Yep. So
Is Horace better? Is Horace better?
I know.
yeah, it's true. It's like, what do you got to be to name your kid Horace? I mean, sorry for anybody who's named Horace out there, but what the hell?
Wow, we're gonna get a bunch of mean fucking
Dear
comments on this.
fuck faces. My parents named
Fuck
me
you,
Horace.
Adam Miles.
Isn't Horus like the Egyptian god of death or something?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever.
You didn't know that, Adam?
Because we really live in old Egyptian times where that's important. So, you know, whatever.
You don't find that.
I know whose team I'm not going to be on when Horror Trivial Pursuit gets launched.
Whatever.
Gee.
Not Adams.
And we also get introduced to Horace's pseudo friend who's looking out for him. We got Rudy, who is like Tim's favorite in this fucking movie.
Oh, did
Not
I
his
say?
idol.
Did I say this during the podcast, or did I say it like? Okay, so I remember watching this movie as a kid, and like I said before we started recording, that like my dad taped it off of the movie channel, and for whatever reason, I didn't know this movie was called Monster Squad for years because he didn't fucking record when it played. So I'm watching it recently, and all these memories are flooding back. And I remember looking at my dad when we were watching this, like, you know, back in fucking, well, this came out 87, so it probably would have been 88, 89. I remember looking at him and going, when I get older, I'm dyeing my hair black like Rudy. And he just, no, you're not. And I know.
No, you're not. And Rudy was a badass. He's the rebel type character. You know, he thinks he's got the women. You know what I mean? He's got that attitude like he can get anybody, right? And
But he kind of had a heart of gold too, because he does help Fat Kid.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, when he did that at the start, I was like, he's not a bad guy at all.
No,
No,
he was
he's
absolutely
like Robin Hood.
He was cool as shit. And the best part is that the other kids fear him too, right? So it's like when he goes to help Horace, he's like, AJ, you dropped your candy bar.
Nah.
Rudy! And his like voice cracks. He's like, eat it. The fucking kid picks it up and eats it in front of everybody because he doesn't want to get his ass kicked, right? It was great.
Great.
That kid's typecast. The bully.
Oh, yeah.
Rudy! Yeah, he didn't make too many other movies that didn't have him just be an asshole, did he?
Well, look at all the Wonder Years, right? I mean, that I always disliked that guy, that character. He was always a bully, a mean guy, right?
Yeah, it's true.
I don't think I could be friends with that guy in real life.
No, exactly.
And he's probably like one of the nicest guys in the world.
Probably.
But I couldn't. Fuck him. You were a dick.
Fuck him.
Fuck him.
Wow.
Oh my.
Oh, man. But it's funny too because Rudy's kind of like a mixture of like the Fonz too, because he's got like the cuffed jeans, with the leathers.
The Fonz,
He's
yeah.
a total Fonz.
That's what I look like in high school.
The leather jacket.
Leather jacket.
They call me Fonz.
Bicycle cards in his fucking
Skids
spokes.
in when he comes in. Dress shoes.
Cards in the smoke.
It's great. And he becomes great too, because he helps out Horace, and then Horace is like, we need to add him to the Monster Club. And it isn't like he's like, fuck this, it's a kid's thing, right? He's actually genuinely like, yeah, okay, whatever, right? And he's there. And then he gets a taste of what's out the window of the freaking the treehouse. It's like,
Fucking what's his name? Sister.
And he was sold.
Patrick's
sister.
Patrick's
And then
sister.
he was sold. But he actually had a genuine interest too, because they were asking him all kinds of weird questions, and it was kind of almost, it was 100% foreshadowing. It was brilliant writing, in my opinion, because they're asking him like, well, how do you kill a werewolf? Silver bullet. Well, how else do you kill a werewolf? There's only one way to kill a werewolf. And they're like, nuh-uh. And they try to play like that game with him. And they're like, throw him out a window on a bomb. It's like,
Nope.
all this kind of shit, right?
Nope.
And at the very end of it, they're like kind of closing up the meeting. And he's like, well, am I in or what? Like, he's actually, it isn't just like it's left alone. Like, he actually wants to know if he's in the group or not, right? Rudy was a good character that way. He was
Hey guys, we're kind of like the Monster Squad.
I'm not
We're
that
kinda like the
guy.
Monster
I do
Squad.
love analyzing the rules of monsters. I'm not gonna lie. Every time they
Can
were
we
talking about
rename our
rules-
fucking podcast to Monster Squad?
We should.
Wicked.
Oh my god!
Oh.
No, wait. I just spent a week and a half totally revamping the look of the show.
So
I'm
in
not.
another week and a half, we're
doing
going
it
to be the Monster Squad.
Monster
Was
Squad.
anybody else super tilted when they figured out that the Monster Squad was the kids and not the squad of monsters?
Well, I honestly think it's a double meaning. That's why it was
It's
called
like the
that.
Monster Squad.
Well,
versus
yeah.
The Monster Squad.
But in the film, they referred to them as. I just thought it was like Dracula's team. It was his squad. They're his homies. They're his boys.
That would have been hilarious if Dracula fucking.
It's like, come on, Monster Squad.
From henceforth, we will be known as Monster
The
Squad.
Monster
Eating a
Squad.
I think when I first saw that, I think that's what I thought. That it was Dracula's team. It was
Oh,
Dracula.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you realize, oh my god, that's such a lame name. Only a 12-year-old could come up with it.
Yeah, but they even have cards made, man.
And that was
Right?
hilarious.
Little sheets of paper they're just handing out and shit. That's great. We're also introduced to the younger sister. We've got Phoebe the Phoebe, who was adorable in this role. Like, going back and watching this, she did a great job.
She did a good job. Yeah.
She was perfect. And she has one of the most endearing roles in the film, just due to the fact that she falls friendship with Frankenstein's monster in this movie. And they have the most adorable friendship. Like, it's great watching them like play with like the dolls and the fucking dressing up and shit like this. It's adorable.
Well, I
Very
really
easy.
Yeah.
I really appreciated the introduction to their relationship with her by the river, fucking picking flowers, and you know what I mean? Except
Frankenstein and the little girl, straight out of the original, Karloff
what he
event.
did.
But
Yeah.
yeah, he didn't toss her in the river.
He didn't kill him.
I get the feeling they spent a lot of time together, not on camera, but I mean off camera, so she could get used to him, and he, befriended her and stuff, just to get her that comfortable in front of the monster, right? Somebody that young, you never know, right? Like, you see somebody makeup, you can't tell if it's just makeup or if it's an actual monster. So
It's true, but I also feel that the caliber of her acting,
yeah,
she knew what was up.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That
But you're right. It felt their relationship felt genuine. Like
genuine, yeah.
yeah.
like-
So they probably did spend a lot of time, but
That would have been
Yeah.
great. I just picture them walking around hand in hand behind the set, behind the scenes on the set, just kind of
Yeah.
chilling out for the day and eating lunch together and shit. And him actually like doing
Yeah.
like the monster, growls and shit like that. That'd be fun.
And it's funny because they do the opposite in a lot of horror movies with kids. they want to ensure the kids don't see anything, so that they're surprised and they get that actual reaction when they get to see them on set first time.
Yeah, like Goonies. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Before we get to the monsters themselves, we still got Eugene. So here's the second youngest, as it were, that's in the cast. He's kind of, well, he's about Phoebe's age, but it looks a bit, if not maybe just a little bit older.
I think he's a little bit older, right? Because I think Phoebe, they said she was like 5. I think he's probably like 6, 7.
Yep.
So we have Eugene, who kind of has one of the only parts in the movie that I kind of go, nah. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I love the scene with him and his father when he's like scared of the mummy in his closet, and his father comes in and he's got that genuinely corny dad joke type reaction. Ooh, look at all the monsters, and he's like, get out of here, you buggers, and trying to.
But that scene was weird because at first it seemed like he was being sympathetic to his son. And then at the end of it, he's like, more or less,
just being a dick.
Stop being a fucking idiot and go to bed.
You're not sleeping with me and your mother again tonight.
Yeah, like it started like, what a dad would do. Like, oh, there's monsters. I'll check under the bed. Nope, they're all gone. Now go to fucking sleep. And
I love it when he opens up the closet and he doesn't even look in and you see the actual fucking mummy. And he's like, ooh, the big look on his face and shit. It was hilarious.
There's no Beetlejuices under your bed. Just go to sleep.
Josh, you reenacted that entire scene when he was young with Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is coming to get me. Beetlejuice is coming to get me. So that begs the question, Josh, did you ever watch the cartoon?
Yeah. I actually loved the movie and the cartoon and all that.
You just hated the fucking doll.
As a kid.
you just hated that fucking toy.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. Okay.
As he looks over his shoulder.
I was looking the whole time we were talking.
I know, I was too.
If its head turns, I'm
done.
I'm done.
I will be done.
Yeah.
I'm moving to Alaska.
Oh, man. So then we also have the father, Dell, Sean's dad. So he's a cop, and he plays a big part. Tough guy. Plays the cop in the movie. He kind of bridges the two worlds between the adults and the kids when it comes to what's going on. This is your atypical, like I said, movie where you have the kids are the heroes, and it's that general consensus that the adults don't believe the kids, and that's throughout the entire movie. We just talked about Eugene's father and the way that he treats the situation, and obviously a cop is going to be a little bit more, pressed to say, you're full of shit, I've seen things, you know what I mean, this can't be real. But he comes in contact with things, and he's starting to question things too as to what's really going on. So he becomes a bit of an important character in the movie too. And he is sympathetic towards his son in the way that his son is when it comes to his love for horror.
I felt that the portrayal of Dell is his name, was a little uneven because at the start, they set up this, him and his wife have this conflict because all he's doing is fucking working. But his wife should fucking know that he's a fucking cop.
It's true.
Right.
Right? Like, come on. Right?
Even Catherine says, married, right?
Yeah, I'm a cop.
Right. It's what I got to do.
Recognize, bitch. No, I'm kidding. But, so you got that aspect. And then you got, I loved the scene of him coming out onto the roof and watching the fucking horror movie.
That was awesome.
Like, I love that.
Yeah,
but then that's it. Like, you don't get any more of that character. He all of a sudden just turns into a cop. And I felt that it was unbalanced. Because I was like, this guy is a fucking awesome dad. Like, this is awesome. He brings them fucking Burger King and they're watching essentially like illegal movies, from, the roof of their house.
So cool, by the way. I mean, how cool would it be to be able to sit on your roof and look down at a drive-in theater like that? I even have that written down. Like, that is
in your radio tune in.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. So I really like that moment. Like he comes out and he's like, "What did I miss?" type of thing. And then, they're eating French fries and drinking pop and shit. But I wanted more of that character dealing with the monsters and being a cop, but they didn't have it. He just became an atypical '80s cop. I didn't like it.
Yeah, he kind of really did switch pretty quickly because of all the situations that the cops then became involved with, having to do with the mummy disappearance, the Wolfman situation at the precinct. He kind of got fully involved, which was once again the situation in which he's arguing with his wife. Of course I'm working so much. I'm a fucking cop, and then all of a sudden it's just the rest of the movie. He's just flat out trying to figure out from the other side of things what's going on with the with the occurrences in the town.
Yeah.
There was some super subtle shit with that too, eh? Did anyone else see like the suitcases packed with the fucking wife ready to leave?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, like she had put some thought into this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just calm down.
Calming down.
Put the suitcase away.
So then we also have scary German guy.
True.
So this
True. He's a character in this movie.
He's a character in this movie, and he's basically just credited as scary German guy. So,
Yep.
But he's a pinnacle character because he's a typical trope of a lot of 70s and 80s horror movies where it's the misunderstood person, the elderly person and or other person, the neighbor. You don't see them. I bet they're a witch. This one is scary German guy. He kills people, whatever have you. And he's a typical horror movie trope character, neighbor character, and he turns out to be one of the kindest and most awesome.
Come in for pie.
Yeah, I love when he brings him into the house and he's like, "I'm going to ask you one last time," and he's got the big fucking knife. It's like last chance for pie, and they're all like happy and full, from eating it.
That part.
Fat kid was eating pie. The rest of them were like,
But the thing that, like, too much of this movie, it sounds like I'm fucking shitting on this movie, but I'm not. I love it. But adult me watching this movie, I felt that they put way too much emphasis on this one character who can fucking translate this book and get the fucking exposition and the story moving. And it's like,
well, that's the entire movie because they didn't write a story.
I know.
They just threw it in there. They're like, yeah, there's an amulet. Oh, yeah, but by the way, we found Van Helsing's diary in German.
In fucking middle USA.
In the yard sale.
Yeah.
In the middle of
I
USA.
needed to build that character.
Suburbia.
Needed to build that character a bit. So when he showed up later on in his Jeep, that you're like, okay, he's in on this fight too, which he all of a sudden appeared. It seemed in the following scenes and stuff, but I don't know. I think he needed to be introduced a little bit, maybe not as much as he was.
I think what would have made more sense was have him be a descendant of Van Helsing.
That would have been probably better.
Do you know what I mean?
What?
They made that super dark comment about him being Jewish and like knowing real monsters.
Right. I mean, they even showed his arm with the tat on. So
He's like monsters. Oh, I know all about monsters.
Right.
And then it shows that he was in a fucking concentration camp. I was like, man, that's dark.
It was dark.
Like instant kind of dark thing when it viewed in on his on his arm there. Yeah.
It was. I always felt that this character would have been better if, when like the whole montage is going on, which is one of my favorite montages in like any 80s film because like the song is great and everything that's going on is just fantastic. I felt that it would have been cool to have him involved, though, a little bit more. Kind of show him getting, along with the characters a little bit more and kind of building up a relationship with them, too. To really kind of cement the fact, like Aaron said, that, he's in on this. He's willing to fight and put up to this, too. But I think that any less with this character, we would have been, complaining the other way. He's fodder, total fodder, and just thrown in.
No, I liked it. I liked his character. I felt that it was a lot of convenience. Like I think if he would have been more attached to the actual story instead of just being the creepy neighbor that just so happens to speak German, it would have benefited a lot. Like I said, like have him be a descendant of Van Helsing or a descendant of one of the people that were there trying to open the portal, whatever, and like you know what I mean. Like just have him be a little bit more part of the actual fabric of the story instead of just, hey, I can speak German. What's it say? Right?
The guy could.
But again, that's the entire movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he could have used
let's
a
be real.
lawnmower on his front yard, so he wasn't so creepy.
Yeah.
His yard was so overgrown, right?
He sounded generally disappointed in that. He was just
It's like the
Throwing
homeowners
tatters.
association wouldn't stand for this.
no.
He wouldn't be that like he wouldn't
Completely
be that
took me out of the movie.
scary. Just get a lawnmower, man. Like get a whip.
fucking garden shears.
You
or
wouldn't be
something.
so scary if you had a couple lawn gnomes out front,
That's
you know.
right. That's right.
Hire a kid to mow your lawn. Come on.
Fresh coat of paint. Come on.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's why the kids all think he's scary, so they won't go to his house to mow him.
Okay, so we got a large list of characters in this movie, so I'm going to jump right over to the villains here so that we can kind of get through this.
Let's talk.
Jeez, I'm sorry,
No,
Adam. We were
no.
taking too long.
So let's talk about the main big baddie first and foremost. Count Dracula appears in this movie. And I got to admit, he's not Mr. Smooth, handsome Dracula, but he is Mr. fucking powerful in this movie. Like he commands a presence.
Yeah, he reminded me of like a Dracula that you would see in one of the old Hammer films. Like he just had this air of vintage. Like he just looked like an old timey actor from like, the 40s, 50s, like the way his hair was all slicked back. And you're right, he commanded a presence. He delivered dialogue very clear and crisp. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree. He was like a Bela Lugosi kind of.
Yes, yes.
He had the eyes going and he was just commanding. You're right.
Yeah.
I like the look of the character, but I thought he was kind of a bitch. Like he's letting an awful lot of people go and just not doing shit.
Yeah.
No.
He was too busy making fucking female vampires and banging them in that house. How many female vampires were there? There's only
Three. He had his brides.
It felt like
that's a story. Dracula always has the three vampire
But I love that
wives.
they put that in there. Like, and they actually introduce them, like, not just they appear the three brides of Dracula at the end of the movie. Like, at the one point, he's like, it's feeding time. And he, like, opens up the closet, and there's the three girls huddled scared. And then he closes the door behind him, and later on, you see them fully turned. I thought it was brilliant the way that they did that. I thought that was great.
I don't know. I have the same problem as, like, the Frighteners vampire. Or Fright Night's vampire. I just don't get it. Like, if you're a vampire, why aren't you just killing these punks? Why are you letting them come up with plots to defeat you? You got a little girl in your clasp, and you're just calling her a bitch. Just snap her neck. You're a vampire.
Well, it is an 80s movie, and I believe it was PG. So
PG-13, but yes.
yeah, it was PG-13. No, PG. Ha! Don't fucking try to out fucking trivia Tim. It says right here, PG, bitch.
PG. Oh, you bastards.
Amulet, bitch.
Oh yeah, they didn't drop enough F-bombs in this movie to be PG-13 apparently. So.
But yeah, no, I liked him as Count Dracula. He was,
I like the character design.
Leader-esque, character in the movie, right?
He wasn't on the ground getting dirty with everybody else. He had minions. He sent them off. They did his bidding. He was a very pompous Dracula, which is what Dracula really kind of is in the stories. He's pompous and untouchable.
Can I mention something though? He drove a pretty cool car.
Oh, I love the fucking
Fuck
car.
yeah,
The hearse.
That was to me. I didn't get a really good look at it, but it looked like a '59 Caddy, and that's A1. That's
you have a hearse, don't you?
I do, yeah.
What year is yours?
Mine's in '86.
See, because as soon as I saw it, I was like, Aaron has a hearse. Like I immediately thought of Aaron has a hearse.
Yeah,
Love that hearse.
I had an 80 at one point. It was a nice square body kind of thing, but man, she was a whore on gas. Whew.
This one is
down.
too, Aaron. Be honest. Come on, buddy.
This one isn't that bad, man. Like I'm telling you, the carbureted. Oh my gosh, man! Like back when gas was 53 cents, which it's almost there again. But when gas was 53 cents and I went to fill that sucker, we're talking like $113 back when it was 53 cents. And I could watch that gauge go out. Like you literally, the 4-barrel in her, it was horrible. But the 350 that I have in this one that's fuel injected, I'm telling you, like that only cost me, even right now, I filled it the other day from like empty, and it was everything I could push to get $45 into it.
Love it.
And it lasts for like 500 clicks around town, so I can't complain.
That's true.
Yeah,
no, that's true. I love that hearse. That's some of the most fun I've ever had driving anything, was getting behind the wheel of that damn thing too, man. I'm telling you.
That's wicked.
I love it.
So what did you guys think of Frankenstein's monster?
Oh yeah. So
I feel like Adam was going to talk, so go ahead,
I was
Adam.
going to say, I have every bit of love for Karloff's original Frankenstein. It's my favorite Universal monster, and Karloff in the original Frankenstein, that's my favorite Universal monster movie, and he's my favorite character actor for the character. This guy, Tom Noonan Jr., playing this character, very close second. He is absolutely everything that I wanted from an updated version of Frankenstein. They'll never be able to top it, in my opinion. I doubt we'll ever see a topped version.
Well, I disagree with that, because there's always room for improvement, and there's always some actor you never thought would look good in the makeup, and so basically, quiet.
Shut up. Adam.
So, shut up. No, but I agree. I think Tom Noonan was fucking brilliant, because it was the first time he's a monster with a heart. You know what I mean? And they really showed that he legit cared for Phoebe, right? And they bonded, and I wish that they would have had him freak out and actually do something instead of just walking around having his hand held. But him on screen, he reminded me of the original Frankenstein.
That's what they should have had. Rudy light up a cigarette, and when he saw the flame, he should have started thrashing around, being crazy.
Yeah.
I always pictured the scene that we were talking about with Phoebe and by the river and him showing up, the homage. I picture that this movie, obviously bringing all these characters together, kind of commands the original stories exist. You know what I mean? Frankenstein was created, Frankenstein's monster was created by Frankenstein back in the day, and he's been in the boxes ever since and everything else. And I almost picture that situation with the little girl originally did happen. And this is almost he's atoning almost a little bit too, you know what I mean? And he's not stupid intelligent by any means, but he's smart enough to know what's going on, and he's got the heart, like Tim said. So
yeah, I did say that, didn't I? I did say that.
He's got the heart. Nice.
The Mummy was pretty forgettable.
I think that was probably the throwaway character when it came to the monsters, was the Mummy.
And he was so cool looking.
He was cool. I don't know. I don't consider any of them a throwaway. I think they all spent, and I'll get into it with the makeup part of it, but I think they spent a good amount of time on every single one of those monsters. I was absolutely. That's why one of the reasons why I love this movie so much. They have so many close-ups of all these critters. It's
Oh, they look amazing. There's no doubt there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
The Mummy character, the reason why I say, and just to say that I feel it was the throwaway character, is because he didn't get as much screen time in awesome scenarios as the rest of them, I don't feel. And he was kind of with anything, if you have a group of bad guys, there's always the one to go first. There's always the one that, you know what I mean? The low end of the totem pole in the whole bad guy scenario. And that was him, unfortunately.
I agree.
Yeah. But he did go out pretty badass, being an archery person, when Rudy ties it and the arrow to the tree and it unravels him. It was great.
I wish that, and I'm going to say this about a lot of the characters, specifically the monsters. I wish that they had more screen time and they had more to do, because the mummy in the closet was by far one of the creepiest fucking camera setups.
Yeah.
Like where the father comes in and he's all out of focus. Like that was creepy as fuck. But then the next time he shows up, he's on the back of the car and he's getting unraveled, which the effect for that was great too. But I find besides Frankenstein, obviously Dracula, the Wolfman was the only other one that had the majority of the screen time. It's like you spent all this time doing fucking Gillman, and like he's the best looking fucking creature from the Black Lagoon like I've seen in like ever, and he's in the movie like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like what the fuck?
I feel like this would do really well as a like reboot with a series.
Yeah,
it totally would. Being like a Justice League Avengers style situation, obviously, like we were already kind of talking about, right? So, okay, so let's talk about that for a second here. So we got Wolfman. So Wolfman is a character that kind of bridges the world between the humans and the monsters a little bit more too, because he appears human form, he appears as the Wolfman, and it's a great Wolfman effect. The transformations are simplistic, like it doesn't go full Rick Baker for a lot of it. It's scene based, you know what I mean? Like a little bit change, and then he's changed. But it's my favorite kind of Wolfman, and we've discussed this before in previous episodes. He's a lumbering wolf man.
Yeah, there is a distinction between a wolfman and a werewolf.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, because he's a bipedal, standing, running around, superhuman strength, half man, half werewolf.
And he seems sentient.
Yeah, and he's very sentient.
Like the wolfman's sentient. He has his own thoughts. He's not just an animal.
Yeah. Yeah, and the effects are great, and the character, kind of plays to what he is, and he's a sympathetic character too, which is actually kind of, a funny thing with this movie too, is because kind of like Frankenstein, he's kind of forced into the situation, but when he turns, he's Hulk. He just does what Master commands him to do. But then when he's human, he's absolutely, you gotta lock me up, you gotta kill me, you gotta do something about me, because I'm gonna hurt people. And he doesn't want that.
Yeah.
And he's got nerds.
Oh, fuck. He went there. All right. Finally, for the monsters, the one that Tim had brought up, which is absolutely in this movie my favorite of the makeups, the Gill.
The best
amazing. Oh my god.
Blown away with the way that the creature looks in this. The Gill Man, creature from the Black Lagoon, whatever you really want to refer to him as, played by go ahead. I was gonna say played by Tom Woodruff Jr., special effects makeup artist to the fucking stars, by the way. He basically is acting the part instead of doing the effects work.
Well, it reminded me, like when I saw it, I was like, holy shit, this reminds me of the Guillermo del Toro fucking monster. Like just everything about it, just I loved it. I loved it.
I think it was the eyes that pierced your soul with that character, because the eyes in it are just...
They look like real fish eyes.
Yeah.
The iridescent kind of when the light hits it just right. Oh.
Yeah.
And I love the way he breathes and his mouth is opening and his gills are going, and he truly is.
All this talk about the Gill Man just disappoints me because he had such little screen time.
I know.
Like,
and he did die like a bitch.
Yeah. Because the whole time I was watching, I was like, yeah, that is how you kill a mummy. You unwrap him. I'm like, yeah, that is how you kill a werewolf. And then I'm thinking, how the fuck do you kill the Gill Man?
Shock and blast.
Oh, literally anything.
Literally anything.
Literally anything.
Which is weird because he's a very powerful creature. I mean, he grabs one guy and crushes his head, and he's just like beating the shit out of people. Slow moving, beating the shit out of people, but he's doing it. And then just all of a sudden, shotgun blast to the chest, and he's done. Great effect, great scenario, great character, but kind of went out the cheapest.
Lame is what
Very
it was.
lame.
It was lame.
All right, we're going to hand over the reins to the one and the only Aaron Peerless, because as much as we talk about the effects in this movie, let's get a breakdown here. What did you see in this movie, Aaron?
going to refer to my notes on this one.
Ooh, you know, he's fucking professional. He's got notes.
So initially, when it first opens up, I got to say something about the sets and everything. They're absolutely phenomenal, right? The sets, the feeling that you get is so cool. The only thing that I thought was a little, and maybe they meant to do it like that, because I don't really take any offense effects wise to it, but the bats, when he turns into the bat and you get the little cheesy bat flying around.
What? I love that.
Yeah, right? But it does add a really cool, it does give this movie soul,
Yeah.
right? What else did I have written down here? The portal, I know I'm not sticking directly to the effects, but I'll quickly hit this one. The portal strangely looks familiar.
You got that vibe too? Evil Dead too?
Yeah. I think science is cool. I dig it, man.
I dig it.
Okay, so let's get back to this. I wrote down bloody nice hearse. Obviously, I'm going to say something like that. Okay, so my first tip that I have here is mummy makeup on par. So when I first saw the mummy come in, when I initially saw this movie a long time ago, I was like, wow, that looks actually really good. And what I should say is that obviously you're going to have really decent makeup if a studio like Stan Winston Studio is doing this kind of thing. You're not going to get into a movie like this and be completely turned off over the makeup. It's going to be really good. But there are a couple minor little things that I did see. I did write down that the creature from the Black Lagoon, Gilman, just absolute, the paint job on that bodysuit and the head on it, and to have the mouth do what it was doing, the gills, everything, absolutely on par. That I would use that creature nowadays in some sort of movie, right? Like those original molds and put an actor in that and use that creature, right? That's absolutely phenomenal.
That poor fucking bastard in that suit. Just sweating his fucking nards off for fucking 2 minutes of screen time.
You gotta look at this. You gotta look at the makeup in a different light as well, too, right? Yeah, he's sweating his nards right off. But at the same time, look at what that makeup is going through. It's being placed in water as these actors are in the water. So if it's foam, hot foam or something, I mean, it could absorb some of that water and it's going to get heavy, right? So, and not to mention, like back in '87, you've got like a primitive makeup things. I mean, you did have hot foam and things like that, but still, for makeup to sustain in water, like how many shots did they have to do that?
Yeah,
right.
And they weren't using silicones heavy back then either, were they?
No, not at all.
Probably literally fucking paint on them, not even makeup.
All hot foam, and who knows what they were using for paint back then, when it came to that kind of thing. Something obviously stayed on, The one thing that I did see, and I've got Frankenstein's monster is on point, but there's when he's laying down and he's coming up out of the crate, or he's laying there and he's talking to Dracula or whatever, right underneath his chin, you can see where they tried to blend out the makeup. And that, after watching this film, was like one of the only things that I saw for edges that didn't blend out properly. And if you weren't looking,
I noticed that too.
Right?
And
yeah,
I'm not even a fucking special effects guy. Like, I wasn't even looking for it, but I saw the seam.
The seam under the chin, right? Now everyone else probably looked at this and was like, that's part of his chin, or the chin wrinkle,
or it's
whatever.
a seam or something like this because he's pieced together from people or some shit,
right? But I mean that's hypercritical. The makeup in this whole movie was just phenomenal. But I enjoyed every little bit, including Dracula's makeup that he had on his. It was completely blended out beautifully. Everything that he had done was beautiful, even though it was more of a basic makeup. And I say basic, but to be able to blend something out like that, so clear, absolutely, phenomenal. And then you had, with Swamp Thing or Gilman, they even wanted to show the translucency with his hand as he puts it up like from behind it, right? Yeah, so they're using like pieces of latex or whatever for that, and you can see the light, so they're really trying to show the makeups off when it comes to that kind of thing. So yeah, as far as anything else is concerned, really, The gore effects when he gets shot with the shotgun, that was good. He didn't get enough time on the screen for the amount of work that was in that suit for sure. The Wolfman, I thought the wolf was better than the Silver Bullet Wolf for sure. But the other thing that I did notice was that they peppered him with rounds at the precinct. Right? That wolf was peppered, but when you see him in his little shirt, he's just got a little clump right up here, right? Whereas the shirt, I was going to be critical of wearing the shirt up, but really I can't be critical over that. But he should have been covered, and maybe that was just part of the rating that they gave the movie or whatever. But that whole front of that shirt should have just been covered, and that was maybe a continuity thing for me that I would have been like, well, that should have been like, they peppered him with rounds. So, and you never know. Maybe it was something that they needed to back off of for the rating that they put on.
Filmed at a sequence, probably.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's about it for this, man. Like, I like the effect when Dracula got burned by the piece of pizza. They had the smoke, everything come out, right? Like it was just perfect, and then they flashed away. That's ingenious. To think of a piece of pizza and to run over and put it on his face, like it's got garlic in it.
This adds some new rules to my encyclopedia of monster rules. This movie.
It's burned Dracula with a piece of pizza. Like that's wicked, right? Yeah. I love the thought process behind that. The transformation in the phone booth I thought was really cool. How they used the edge of the phone booth, the metal pieces in between the glass, where the camera panned over, and you just went in front of that piece, and then you jetted over it on the other side, and bam, he's changed somewhat. Into his next stage of getting woolly. And,
nice.
That's about it for what I've got for that. Anyway, I've got other notes, but for makeup purposes, I think that's. I think this was obviously you can't get any better than the Stan Winston Studios. I mean, those guys are fantastic. So
no, the effects were phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did think the movie was a little short, and I think. Getting back to what Tim was saying, they could have spent a little more time maybe developing the characters a little bit more and extended the length of the movie, and that would have incorporated maybe having Swamp Thing or the Mummy in a few more scenes.
I think each monster needed to have their scene, like their moment to be a monster, and I felt that Dracula had a bunch. Fucking the Wolfman had a bunch, but the Mummy and the Gillman and even Frankenstein never really got to be monsters.
Yeah,
really.
I think Frankenstein for Frankenstein's monster just had enough so that you actually felt something for him. Yeah. But I truly believe that he needed a little bit more because I was loving that character so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. They all work for Dracula, or Dracula's just like the big boss, or do you think it's like Dracula's power to kind of like oversee lesser
power
creatures?
To control?
Yeah. So then how come fucking Frankenstein's monster just like fuck
Love.
Dracula?
Heart.
Love overpowers Dracula's power.
The power of love.
So much fucking passion behind his voice. Love.
You answered that really quick too, Adam. You're right.
It's
no hesitation.
It's It was documented in previous Dracula type movies, and I think it was actually in the book too, that his power to control anything, obviously the minds and stuff like this and everything, right? But it was brought up in a couple of the older, Dracula meets whatever type of horror monster movies that he could put control over them, but there would always be that time or that situation where they'd be able to kind of break the bonds and go about their own or fight against him because, they find another reason, like there's heart behind it and they don't want to be anymore, you know what I mean? And so heart.
Okay. Heart. Well, we don't know whose heart, but someone's in the monster.
Someone's heart.
Hi everybody, this is Vincent DeSanti, the writer and director of Friday the 13th fan film Never Hike Alone, and you are listening to the great commentary of They Cast from the Coast. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to check out Never Hike Alone, which is streaming for free on YouTube right now.
So then that brings up Josh. You have notes.
Well, of course.
So why don't you give us your notes?
This was my first viewing of Monster Squad. I was pleasantly surprised. This viewing took place April 20th, 2020 at 8:14 p.m.
Jesus, you watched it, what, an hour ago?
No.
April 20th is today, bud.
Oh, it says April 20th on the top of my sheets. It would have been April 19th. I think I edited the sheet today.
I'm not editing that out of the
Okay.
episode. Fuck that.
No, it would have been. I'll just redo that.
I'll just redo it. Start over.
April 19th, 2020 at 8:14 p.m. My first note was TriStar. I love TriStar movies. Wonder whatever happened to them. You never see TriStar anymore. Did someone buy them?
Probably. Probably.
Next thing was, hey, it's a Stan Winston effects film, so we know we're going to be in for some good effects. I wrote cool, practical, bad effect. I thought it was pretty neat. I said, oh shit, these villagers have TNT. That's fucking game changer for the villager horde of angry villagers. You throw some dynamite in their hands, that's game changer stuff. I said, it's the Crypt Keeper. I said, this old guy is really giving the poor girl reading the things, the gears. That guy was just like not letting up on the poor virgin trying to say the stuff. He's just giving it to her.
Oh, yeah,
Just giving her the gears. Hurry up! She's going as fast as she can. I read, oh shit, is this movie just literally Dracula being sent into the future? I hope so. I was kind of right. What even happened in that scene? I was kind of confused, honestly. So the portal opened up because they didn't say the words right, and it sucked in all the good guys, but it didn't suck in Dracula, and then Dracula just like survived for 100 years, and it just rolled up.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Let's just go with that.
Okay. Oddly shaped cat head.
The teacher.
Yep. And then I wrote, it's a glandular problem. That's my favorite excuse for fat people. Being a fat people myself. Just like, it's a glandular problem. I wrote, wow, these kids are just dropping the F slur left and right. You can definitely tell this was in the 80s. Yeah, there's some inappropriate language for nowadays in this film. I don't know if you'd want your kid watching this necessarily.
I remember somebody telling me that there is a cut of this movie where they remove the F slur and just replace it with fucker. What'd you say, fucker? What'd you say, fucker? And I'm like, okay, that's better. But it's still fucking dropping cursing and shit, right? And
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I said these kids are mega cool. I would totes hang with them when I was a kid. And then I wrote Stephen King t-shirt. Nice.
Yep.
Nice. What the fuck was Dracula's plan at this point? Was he just gonna fly the plane himself after like executing the other pilot?
Josh just fucking stutter at the end.
No. At that point, he was literally getting ready to
just bat mode and fly out, I guess.
He dropped off the coffin. He dropped the cargo, so he had snuck on board to drop the cargo out. So he literally was gonna either kill them and let them crash the plane, or B, he was just gonna drop it off and let them alone. But that one guy deserved it because he got in the way. But he didn't die. He should have.
Well, he might have died later. Heart attack, #1 cause of death, heart disease. A whole scene explaining the monster's rules. I think I like this movie. I wrote Groundhog Day Part 12. This is the most meta joke about the Friday the 13th series I think I've ever seen. So the son is talking to the father about going to see Groundhog Day Part 12. And that's this like film's canon universe of the serial killer that kills on Groundhog
Yep.
Day.
Didn't they kill him in the last one? Yeah.
He came back.
If you were trying so hard to go to jail, why not just commit a crime?
Yeah, that's my 13-year-old son said that.
Yeah. He's like,
And then later on in the
lock
movie,
me up, put me in jail. Like,
later on in the movie, he
right.
goes, "Why don't they just get the 5-year-old who's a virgin?" Like, my kid is on point.
Yeah.
I'm legit tilted right now. Is this movie a comedy? It's a straight up squad of Universal monsters. So at this point, I wasn't really sure if this was going to be a serious movie or like a Saturday the 14th
Abbott and
style
Costello
movie.
meet the Frankenstein's monster or
Yeah.
some shit. Yeah.
The fucking mummy in the closet. Man, this scene is great. I said, the fat kid farted. I'm sold. All she does is sit around and let guys touch her. That is dialogue.
That was gold. Yeah.
All she does is sit around and let guys touch her.
Said so
tits.
matter-of-factly, by the way.
Yeah. Rudy asking the real questions. How does the dog get up in the treehouse?
I've got that written down here too, Josh. I'm like, how?
Yeah, it's quality.
I'll get up there.
Frankenstein's monster doesn't hurt kids. That's like a rule, isn't it? This was probably when Dracula first said, "Go get the kids." And I'm thinking, I was like, but Frankenstein doesn't hurt kids. This German guy is bitchin'. I think that's what Fat Kid said when he gave him the pie. If I was a vampire, I wouldn't have a reflection. More rules establishments. Come on, don't be a chicken shit. Another great quote. The camera is all set up to take pictures. Did you notice this? It's bad enough that when Rudy starts, he grabs the fucking binoculars and starts looking, and then you see the next scene. He's got like a whole camera set up, a whole rig.
Doesn't have a telephoto lens though.
Oh, what a perv, old Rudy.
Yep, my favorite character. Gonna dye my hair and be just like him.
Fuck. I said, Frankenstein's monster just said bogus. He is the true hero we don't deserve.
Gosh.
I said, oh fuck, an 80s montage. And it was an 80s
was the
montage
best.
to end all monsters. I do agree. I said, Eugene's out there recruiting the armed forces. I hope the movie ends with the armed forces arriving looking for Eugene. I was not disappointed, good sir. Stealth level 100 when stealing those bow and arrows from the guys.
Oh, yeah.
They're like straight up right beside him, and Rudy just reaches down and
The
grabs
best part
him.
was it wasn't just like a bow and arrow. It was like a compound bow at the time, which was, a lot more
Yeah.
expensive and harder to come by. So they went full out when he stole that shit.
Adam trying to fucking keep up
Shadow
with knowledge
Road.
here.
666 Shadowbrook Road is the address.
Yeah.
The Swamp Thing is kind of the Aquaman of these monsters. Could you imagine being poor Swamp Thing?
The kill man.
I wrote, Fat Kid is my boy. The Math Squad, quote. Excellent. Then, it'd be remiss without this quote written down. Kick the Wolfman in the nards. The Wolfman has nards. Excellent.
Brilliant.
Leftover pizza. That's a new rule for me for the vampire book of potential lore. 20 minutes to midnight, and some weird German guy is driving around a pile of 12-year-olds. Whatever happened to be home before the streetlight comes on?
Well, this is different, Josh. Just monsters.
I don't know. Ghost car.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy, right? What was that about? Dracula's car just goes ghost mode?
It was cool.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through the police car, yeah.
And then I wrote, what a dick.
Dracula?
Don't know who. Maybe.
He blew up
Someone would be in a
the
dick.
house, the treehouse.
Oh, yeah, what a dick. Dracula just blew up the treehouse. What a
Yeah,
dick.
see, it's funny. Okay, so like I said, I was watching this with Anthony, and he was kind of like, yeah, it's an 80s movie, but, you know, it's got monsters or whatever. But when fucking Dracula walks away and goes meeting adjourned and it blows up, he goes, this movie's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and he was absolutely sincere. This movie is amazing.
This movie does have an excellent amount of cheese in one-liners.
It was good.
Man, I don't think they could have made a more badass 13-year-old than Rudy. The half-bat vampire scene was very cool. So guess you can't just blow up a werewolf. Which is one that I kind of was thinking. I was like, can't you just blow the shit out of a werewolf? But no, guess not. Ha 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 ha. Steve didn't count. Ha ha ha. How the fuck do you even stop the swamp thing? And then I wrote, pretty much with anything, I guess. I said, did Dracula just call a 5-year-old a bitch?
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Flat out.
I said, looks like the army got Eugene's letter. I am not disappointed. And then I wrote, excellent way to end this movie with a rap.
An 80s rap.
80s rap.
The classic, scene where the army shows up when everything's already done, right? Like,
Yep.
get out of here.
Always.
We've already taken care of everything. Thank you very much, because we're the fucking
Monster
Squad.
Right.
Yeah.
They're like the Ghostbusters.
So I will say about that, when I said earlier that Eugene had, in my opinion, the lamest moment in the movie.
You didn't like it. I knew you
It
wouldn't
wasn't
like
that he wrote to the army and the army showed up. It's that when the army showed up.
It's in crayon?
No, it's when the army showed up. He goes, "Mummy was in my closet." It was like, I'm sorry, it was just like the worst line in the movie, just the way that he said it. I know he's really young and all that kind of shit, but that was probably the only time I went, ugh. You know what I mean? In the entire movie.
Yeah, but you know what, Adam? If you were in this movie, that's what line you would give.
That's the line Adam would have written for the movie.
Mommy was in my closet. Shut up, Adam.
There's one other thing I want to say about Frankenstein's makeup, because I shit on it earlier a little bit. But when he's in the clubhouse and he's next to the camera, and you see the light, like the sunlight coming in and beating down on that makeup, that's one of the harshest shots you can have when it comes to makeup, because it'll show up all the little lines and seams, right? Just because of the shadowing and everything like that. But in that scene, I kept watching for things, and I couldn't see any lines when they had that harsh lighting setup coming through that window. So that was actually really good for me, and that kind of made up for me what I saw under the chin.
Nice.
I'm not even gonna lie. Frankenstein's monsters makeup was probably my least favorite of all the monsters.
Yeah.
He didn't look like undead or like patched together. He was
No,
all
but I mean,
really
they were
pink.
trying to go with.
He looked like Frankenberry. He was pink.
Whatever. All right.
I like Frankenberry.
I like Frankenberries too. Thank you, Aaron. I like Frankenberries too.
I get they didn't want to make him look too scary, but
All right.
I always see Frankenstein's monster as like green.
Yeah. Okay.
Typically, yeah.
With that, Tim. Trivia time with Tim.
All right, I'm going to start it off with Liam Neeson was paid for a bit part that was never shot.
I want to see that bit.
So do I, but it was never shot, so you can't.
Liam Neeson and Gary Busey.
Fuck off with the Gary Busey.
Okay,
What were they
let it go.
doing together?
All right, so this actually goes into something that Aaron was saying earlier. The scene where Dracula lifts Phoebe up and she screams was all done in one take. Duncan Reger wouldn't wear his red contacts or fangs around a 5-year-old because it scared her too much. For the scene, the director, Fred Decker, just told Ashley to scream once the platform raised her. And then when she asked when, Decker goes, "Oh, you'll know," and then proceeded to shoot. The terrified scream when you hear Dracula opens, when Dracula opens his eyes, is Ashley's genuine scream.
So that's what I was telling you about. When they do that a lot on horror sets, and that's great.
I'm
That's
glad
the best
they do
way to
that.
get a genuine scream.
Absolutely. It's just like the kids in Goonies when they saw the ship for the first time coming out of the water slides, right? They come up and look and they're like, whoa! That's their actual reaction, right?
Nice.
According to Fred Decker and Shane Black, the first draft of the screenplay was so huge that the opening in the film featured Van Helsing accompanied by Zeppelins and hundreds of men on horseback storming Dracula's castle. Decker stated that this sequence would have cost more than the complete budget of the whole film.
Would have been
I can
epic, though.
It would have been dope.
That would have been epic.
About a year and a half after the Monster Squad had finished, Shane Black and Fred Decker worked together to get again writing Shadow Company. The script was to be an action horror film about a group of U.S. Special Forces who died during the Vietnam War and years later, and the soldiers who were members of many secret army experiments rise up from the graves as rotting, unstoppable zombies. The zombie soldiers would have raided the armory from a nearby army base and proceeded to destroy the town, which they were buried, killing everyone in it. The movie was supposed to be directed by John Carpenter sometime in 1989, produced by Walter Hill and Kurt Russell, was supposed to be the main fucking role, but it was never made. The original script by Black and Decker has since gained a cult following by theirs and John Carpenter fans. Holy shit! I didn't even read that. Like, I just read it. I didn't absorb what that was, but that would have been amazing. But that was supposed to be the movie that they made after this one.
That would have been great.
Near the start of the movie where the plane... Sorry, let me start again. Near the start of the movie, the plane where Dracula first appears has Browning written on the side as a nod to director Todd Browning, who directed Dracula in 1931. Wolfman's face was modeled after that of Stan Winston.
Nice.
According to Fred Decker, the director, the original film was cut by 13 minutes because some of the executives didn't want it to run more than 90 minutes. So there's 13 minutes that could have been character development of all these other fucking things. We're here making fun of poor Brent Callum, who portrayed Horace, Fat Kid, who tragically died of pneumonia in 1997.
Oh,
Wow, way to go, Adam.
Fuck off.
Yeah, fucking way to go.
Adam.
In 2006, Wizard Magazine made a list of the 100 greatest villains of all time. Dracula was ranked number 30 on the list, but surprisingly, it was for Duncan Reger's performance in the film. His performance was chosen over all other versions of the character.
That's weird.
Reger's Dracula is still considered to be one of the best interpretations of the character. I disagree a little bit.
Strongly.
Well, I mean, I recently sat down and rewatched the original 31 Dracula with Lugosi, and as much as I have a lot of respect for it, it's not the best portrayal. It's just the most iconic.
Shut your whore mouth, Adam. Shut your whore mouth.
Horace?
Whore.
Is that his short version of his name? Hor?
Oh,
Maybe.
do you think they named him Horace and the parents are like calling him Horror all day? Like how Tim's name is Timothy, but his dad probably called him Tim?
Actually, it's the other way around. My dad always called me Timothy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, that's the name I named you. Everybody else called me Tim.
And then when you were in shit, he called you Tim.
Right?
This movie came out 6 months before another movie written by Shane Black, Lethal Weapon. There's a poster of a Fulci film, Zombie Flesh Eaters from 1979, visible in the background of the clubhouse. I noticed that because I am a fan of monster posters, horror movie posters. This film is said to be a absolute blatant ripoff of the more well-known horror adventure film, The Goonies. Eventually, this film gained cult status and popularity. I absolutely see that.
Yeah.
I can see it.
They classified Goonies as a horror film?
I don't see that.
That's
I
a
guess
stretch.
I guess it had horror elements.
Like,
Come
what?
on, how scary would it be to have three fucking crazy Italians chase you with guns through fucking tunnels, and you end up in a pirate ship? Yeah, it's fucking horror. Just
That's
listen to
called
what I'm saying.
adventure, bro.
Horror, it's adventure, man. Look at Indiana Jones, man. Like Temple of Doom. Is that horror or is that adventure?
Horror elements. Horror
No.
elements.
You're being
Horror elements, maybe. Just kidding.
Horror.
Horror.
Do you think he called him whore after his mom? He said, "I named you after your mom.
Oh my god.
Get over here and eat your dinner, whore."
Keep going, Tim.
This is falling apart.
Oh man.
The picture that Frankenstein's monster takes of Patrick's sister undressing in front of the window is actually of a blonde girl in a black shirt. So there was no real nudity, unfortunately.
Okay.
During the montage of the Monster Squad getting ready to stop Dracula, Sean points to where Shadowbrook Road is on the map to show his friend Patrick where the mansion Dracula is hiding out in. On the other side of the map, it says Cheney College, which is obviously an homage to Lon Chaney Jr., who played Larry Talbot in The Wolfman from Universal Studios. I don't know why I'm trailing off. That's it, really. The creature from the Black Lagoon is never mentioned by name by any of the characters in the movie, and the credits only refer to him as Gillman. So I wonder if there was maybe a fucking
Right
copyright,
distribution.
yeah, something. Even though I honestly think that monster makeup was the best I've ever seen.
Back in the late 80s, there was an interview not that long ago with John Carpenter where he talked about the fact that back in like the late 80s, early 90s, he was tagged to direct a remake. And there was on the interview, he had like the proof of concept like maquette in the background sitting on his fireplace showing the awesome effect. So there's a good chance that it was something you couldn't talk about at that time when they were putting it out there because it was already being optioned for film again. So
Well, I just because as I'm doing this, I'm trying to multitask and get the thumbnail done for the episode, and I was going through just basically looking at the Monster Squad like posters and shit to use for the thumbnail, and someone made, obviously it's a mock, it's not real, Monster Squad Part 2, and it's fucking Jason, Freddy, Michael, Leatherface, and fucking Chucky. And those are the 5 fucking monsters that's going. And I'm like, holy fuck, I wish that was real.
That's funny. That's funny.
You would need quite the squad to take them down.
Us!
The Monster Squad!
Monster Squad.
You got Jamie Lee Curtis, Bruce Campbell. Who else is in your mega squad that's going to take them motherfuckers
Never
down?
fucking mind.
Nancy, fucking...
Nancy.
Yeah.
Nancy Drew?
Yes. And the Hardy Boys.
Yeah,
They'll solve any
The
mystery.
Hardy Boys. Yeah. Somebody's gonna say.
Shaggy and Scoob.
Cube.
Hey,
Scoob.
Can't even do it.
What
Cube.
about all the old school stuff, like the T-shirts, man? TC Surf Designs, like that's wicked. I used to have those T-shirts, and the fat kid there, he was wearing them like throughout the whole movie, right? That was awesome. That brought memories back for me.
All right, gentlemen, it's time that we talk our final thoughts and give this movie our ratings. So,
You know, for a minute there, I almost forgot that we were doing an episode, and we were just talking.
it's such a good movie. It's just a topic you want to talk about. So, you know. So, first person I want to hear from Josh, because this was Josh's first foray into the Monster Squad. So, Josh, give us your final thoughts and rate the movie for us, bud.
I really enjoyed this movie. I don't think it's quite horror as I'm used to seeing horror. It's almost like skirting that line of like almost like comedy horror. But there's some really cool scenes. There's some amazing effects, some amazing makeup. There's plenty of cheese for me to keep me entertained. There's some quirky one-liners that's pretty funny. I just don't have anything really bad to say about this movie except for that the story was rushed and kind of parted apart. It would have been
It was
much
almost
better.
meh.
Yeah, the story is definitely meh. I'll give it 10 meh out of meh for story. Not
Oh my God, we should totally do a new rating, rated M for meh.
meh.
I did it.
Might
I'm
have
doing
to
up
add
a
it
thing.
now.
I'm doing up a thing.
Yeah,
But not tonight. You can't rate it that tonight.
I
I
don't
can
know.
do
Who
what I
knows?
want, bitch.
Yeah.
Do what I want.
I would recommend this movie. I've never seen it before, and now that I've seen it, it's definitely going to be in my roster of good horrors movies to go back and watch. Yeah, rated R. R for recommend.
Ooh, I love it. Perfect. R for recommended. Tim.
This is another one of those '80s movies that I have a lot of sentimental value. It's one of the few that I watched with my dad. My dad not being, you know, he was more into science fiction and action and shit. But to sit down and actually watch a horror movie was just one of those things that kind of like added to my love of horror. But I remember watching this. Like I said, I watched it for years, had no idea it was called The Monster Squad. Wanted to be like Rudy when I grew up. That didn't happen, as you can see right now. Um, but this movie, believe it or not, given the fact that it is a pretty basic, generic kind of story, it to me does feel like a Goonies clone. But there's so much more to it that makes it different than the Goonies. I think the fact that it was made in the '80s and it was a group of kids trying to stop a bunch of adults, and in this case, monsters. Yeah, the similarities are there, but the fucking special effects in this movie are second to none. Like, I'm watching this in 2020 and I'm still blown away by Gilman and the Mummy, and I mean, even to a lesser extent, the Wolfman. Like, you know, a lot of that, like, servos in for the puppetry of the fucking face are in that thing. Like, there's no wires or anything. Like, he's fucking running around and doing shit, and I know that that'd probably be hard to do today, and they did it in '87. um with all that being said, I'm obviously going to rate it R because I think every horror fan needs to see it. It's fun. This movie is fun. It's not meant to be scary. It's not meant to be anything else, but it's fun. It almost makes me feel like a kid watching it, and I think that was the point. Rated R.
Sweet. Rated R. Aaron.
I get the feeling like whenever I watch this movie, like whenever I watch something with Vincent Price, I got that, you know, because he always had these really cool. It's weird to say this, but it's like a warming.
Yeah, you came home. You're home.
Yeah.
Right. And this movie did this for me, right? It did that for me. It literally put me in that frame of mind when I watched this again. This is one of my favorite movies. I think that I grew up with anyway. After the initial shock with Silver Bullet and scaring the shit out of me or whatever, but you know, building up the tolerance for the old horror films, and then seeing this, I think this is one of my favorites when it comes down to the amount of makeup that was in it. I mean, those characters were, a lot of the times they were in the scenes separately, which would have been easier on the effects crew to build these things and to bring them to volition in the makeup trailers. But a lot of the times they were all together too, so that would have been like a big crew. And if you look on IMDb, you do see that there's a big crew for SPFX and a lot of people that are working on these creatures. And there would have to be, because you could tell that the love was definitely put into like Gilman and even the Wolf for that matter. But even Dracula, I mean, he had a great makeup, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to rate this movie an R as well, just because I think the story kind of lacked a little bit. I would definitely give this an excellent if it came to the makeup part and just the makeup part of this whole thing. But where I think it got cut a little short, where it could have been maybe 13 minutes longer, Tim, for sure. Yep. I think that 13 minutes would have added to this and would have maybe completed things a little bit more. I'm a huge fan of the Goonies. That's, I think, why I go back to this being, and I call it like the monster movie. If you like Goonies, you're definitely going to love this because this is the Goonies version of, right? So yeah, I think that's I'm giving that an R, and yeah, I think the sets, the makeup, everything, I think were really good. Story, a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
You reckon that scene with Liam Neeson would have solved everything wrong with the story?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
That was
Let's just-
that was the
That
pertinent
was
information.
the key part, yeah.
Let's just go with that idea.
There's nobody that was taken in this, was there?
Well, technically Frankenstein's
Unique-
monster at the beginning.
Unique set of skills.
Yeah.
So I share a lot of the same sentiments, obviously, as you guys. This was, for
You notice
me,
Adam always starts his fucking.
If we could have a ticker that ticks up every time Adam
fuck
says
you.
he shares
From
the
now
same
on,
sentiment,
I'm giving my
and
final
another
thoughts at the
ticker
beginning.
that says every time Tim threatens to quit the show, I don't know which ticker would be higher.
I don't know, because every time I say this, also Tim threatens to quit the fucking show. So, you know.
It's true.
That's true.
It's true. Fuck this. Okay.
I don't need to listen to this.
I was always a fan
I
of
only
the
did that
Goonies.
once.
Nice. I was always a fan of the Goonies. Goonies has a special place in my heart, but this was a different version of the Goonies to me. This was the Goonies almost extreme to me. This was the one that kind of entered and bridged more into the world of horror, which I loved so much. So, yes, it might be considered a pure rip-on story and beat for beat as the Goonies, but it had a whole different value to me as a horror movie fan because I got to see amazing makeups, creatures and characters that weren't, actively on screen anymore because those types of movies that fizzled out in the 70s, you know what I mean? Seeing extra, Frankenstein's monster and Gillman and shit like that, right? So you didn't see that stuff anymore. And to see them in this capacity was amazing. This is one of those movies that I always felt that could enjoy a second life if it was like a limited Netflix series of some kind. And they did like a 6 or 7 episode, even 10 story arc episodes where it's literally this Avengers type fucking monster plot to try to take over the world, and it all comes down to the kids.
But why does it only have to be 10? Like, fucking keep it going. Obviously, the ending of this movie was open to a sequel, right? Like, just, we're the Monster Squad.
Yeah,
them
absolutely.
doing different fucking,
well, a lot of continuing series that are on TV now start off as limited series. You know what I mean? Or there was an initial series that was purchased, right? Yep. So get fucking Netflix or HBO behind this and put out a fucking Monster Squad miniseries, and if it's positive, leave it open at the end for a second season.
It's too close to Stranger Things. It'd be hard to compete.
Yeah, but if Universal actually got behind it and they were able to do Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, and have that core monster squad there, I think it would be,
Well, and they're already they've been trying to do the dark universe, the Universal dark universe for a while now, right? So you got the Mummy, Invisible Man just came out. So you got some other key characters, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Invisible Man, all these characters that could eventually end up as part of the ongoing stories to expand it. So this movie has a special place in my heart. I remember sitting down and watching this for the first time and being blown away. Absolutely, it is what it is. And I had the enjoyment of when we were getting ready to do this episode, sitting down with my kids and introducing my kids to this movie, just the same as Tim did. And my daughter walked away from this movie. Me. I know. And my daughter walked away from this movie going, that was amazing. And she loves a good monster flick, right? So she thought it was great too. And it's one of those ones where you just genuinely feel great watching the movie.
Yes.
I get pumped. I love it. The montage is one of my favorite of the 80s montages because I love 80s montages, but this was like one of my favorite. I don't even know the song. I don't think I've ever had that song in a fucking playlist ever, but it's a pumped song for this movie. It exists just for this movie for me. Right down to just the way that the characters are, period. You know, I would have hung out with these fucking characters. We would have all been fucking outcasts and losers together, but then we would have been the heroes of the story. So this movie does everything right for me. It does have some glaring issues, which we talked about, but it does everything right. And it, seriously, in all honesty, belongs in my top 10
No.
of all time.
way.
This movie exists in
Are
the
we
top 10.
talking X rating status here?
I'm not going to give it an X.
So it's in your top 10 favorite movies.
Yep.
But it's not an X.
I fucking
Correct.
quit.
I don't understand.
There it is.
I'm not gonna. There it is. Tick, 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 tick. I'm not gonna give this movie an X rating. I'm in fact gonna give this movie an R.
Wouldn't it be
Boy.
funny if he said all that shit and he's like, I'm gonna rate this S for shit.
I'm gonna rate this a pretty PG, pretty good. But no, I'm gonna give this movie an R.
Me.
But genuinely, it belongs in my top 10. Probably at like say number 10. It's just the way it's probably due to the fact that it's a very specific type of movie. You know, I love a good slasher movie. I love a good monster movie. But this, like The Princess Bride brought a whole bunch of action and comedy and romance together. This was comedy, kids as the heroes, horror movie, monster movie. Like, it brought a bunch of elements that made movies good together. And it's kind of like the best of all worlds, the way that this comes together. It sits very highly there for me. So we have 4 R's. Rated R, recommended. They Cast from the Coast R recommends this movie to anybody. And I mean, unless there's a lot of Josh type people out there, the vast majority of people watching this have probably seen this movie. But if you haven't, definitely check it out.
What's hilarious though is, okay, so my very dear friend Andrew, not a big horror guy by trade. I believe, you know, what we've been doing for the last couple of years with the whole Misunderstood Art Company thing. He's definitely become a horror fan. But what's fucking weird, this is one of his favorite movies. Like, as a kid, like, this was one of, like, I bought this for him for Christmas this year.
Nice.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that just goes to show that this movie is, Adam said, a gateway horror movie, right? Because this movie's it's real nice.
Real nice.
Real nice, Clark. Just
Real
real nice.
Real nice. All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap things up. So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into this week's episode. And, just want to kind of give a shout out and say, check us out on Facebook. Like and subscribe and follow us on Facebook. We have the Misunderstood Art Company, which you can look us up under. We post all of our episodes to social media that way as well. We're also on YouTube. Like and subscribe, follow, and look for alerts. We go live on Facebook, but we upload everything onto YouTube as well. We're also on all of the major podcasting platforms. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, etc. And we're also on Patreon. Open up your hearts and your wallets. Join us on the Patreon game. Help us produce extra content. And, from everybody here, Tim.
Stay spooky, everybody. No, I didn't believe that. Let me do it again. Stay spooky, everybody.
Nice. Josh.
I have a very simple request. Just keep watching our simple videos. It keeps Adam busy. We all know that if Adam's not busy, all he's going to do is let a bunch of guys touch his tits. So let's just try and keep Adam busy, folks.
Adam,
how do you know I wouldn't how do you know I wouldn't just let them touch my tits to begin with, Josh? I'm busy.
If
I got to find
busy,
time for it.
These guys are lined up at Adam's door to touch his tits, and his wife's out there saying, like, Adam's a very busy guy, He's filming podcasts, he's editing, he's a busy guy. Come back later.
There's a fucking lineup.
Whatever. Aaron.
All right. Well, give me the amulet, you bitch.
Okay, you got right in the camera.
You got right in there.
Lots of effort. Thank you, everybody. And until next time, see you later.
Good night.
Kick him in the nuts.